I've been fortunate enough to spend quite a bit of time with the Canon, Nikon and Sony systems, borrowing gear, buying stuff, selling it, and just trying things out and seeing what I like and what works for me. I really want to focus more on the stuff that kind of actually matters for you guys when you're trying to pick a system. And it doesn't matter if it's one of those three or something else, maybe it's Fuji or OM system or whatever it might be. It's about looking and trying to find the things that matter to you. Sift through all of the kind of nonsense reviews that are online and the sort of clickbaity stuff that's out there. But I want to talk about some of the things that made a difference for me, and these might be the things that make a difference for you when you're trying to choose between these systems. Back in the day, when there was the cameras like the D800 and the 5D Mark III, all of the systems were wildly different. So the D800 had not very much in common with a camera like the 5D Mark III from Canon. So it's kind of easier in some ways to make these decisions. Nowadays, the systems have more similar than they do different. So we need to focus on the things that are different and why they might make a difference for you. The one thing I think we really need to get out of the way, though, is that the image quality coming out of these cameras is basically the same. There's very little difference. It's kind of almost at the point where it's not worth talking about the image quality differences. The things that are different is the handling and the lenses, specifically the sizes of the lenses that are available, and the camera's approaches to sort of things like ergonomics and so on. These things make the cameras feel very different to one another. So camera manufacturers want you to play this game where you get out a sheet of paper and you write down all of the things that are good about this one system. So you can just go, high megapixels, yes, it shoots this many frames per second and so on. And you go through and you choose your system by stuff that's really easily quantifiable on a piece of paper. But the real world kind of doesn't really work like that. We want it to be something that when you pick it up, you're just like, yep, that's me, that fits, that's perfect. And it might be that it's a smaller camera, and it might be that it's a bigger camera. In my case, the Z8 just felt like my older Nikon cameras, and it was just perfect for me. You have to stop thinking about what does my favorite YouTuber shoot with? What does my favorite photographer on Instagram shoot with? Because that's them. It's very easy for us to get influenced by those things. This is what these companies, particularly Sony, are very good at that. And I can't blame them for it because I think they're doing the right thing with their marketing for themselves. Maybe not for us, but certainly for themselves they are. What they're doing is they're trying to get people's favourite photographers using their system. And then people go, well, if they can take pictures like that, then if I buy that camera, then I could take pictures like that. That photographer, whoever your favourite photographers are, they can shoot like that with any camera, right? Because their work doesn't change. And I can prove to you that the camera doesn't make any difference. It's because when you look at your favourite photographers and when they switch systems, especially on YouTube, there's a lot of YouTubers, and I'm not blaming them for it. There's a lot of YouTubers that are changing system every 3, 4, 5, 6 months. They're onto a different system. When you look at their work, it looks exactly the same. This comes back to what I was saying earlier. The camera system is it all does look the same nowadays. There's small variances in colour. There's not much in it. The lenses are all very similar quality levels. You might come along and pick an R6 Mark II. You might pick a A7 IV and just say, that's just right. And that's my point. That's what it's about, because all the pictures look the same. All the lenses are basically the same. There's minimal differences between them. Like, you go and look at the lens comparisons, like the 51.2s. They look a little bit different, but they all look really good. Let's just be honest, they all look really good. You just then have to think, like, okay, if all the 51.2s are good, what camera body do I want to mount that on? Surely I want the one that feels nicest to me and that I enjoy using the most, right? Does that sort of make more sense? Now, when it comes to buying this gear and upgrading, there's like a couple of rules that I have with this. And the first one is that you should not be going into a credit card or debt or anything like that to buy this camera system, because what will happen when you buy a new camera is the novelty will wear off in about 6 hours. You'll buy the camera, you'll pick it up and use it, and you'll go, okay, this doesn't really feel that much different. So for me, the Z8, for example, if I compare this to like a D800, the focus is better, the frames per second are faster, it's got a nice screen on the back, it's got the video features, and that's basically it. Not much has moved on. Like, I know there's like a lot of tech in these things. The autofocus is the real upgrade, really, and the video features. But besides the autofocus and the video features, which is stuff that I need now, it's pretty much the same. And I think that that's probably what a lot of people are feeling, is this, when they buy these cameras, they're just feeling this sort of, there was all this hype, I got it, and what happened? There's nothing, it's not as exciting, or interesting as I thought it was going to be. Maybe I got the wrong one. Maybe I need to change something. I need to switch. Don't break the bank to buy these things. What you're using right now, do you just want something new? Is it just exciting to get that new camera, just the idea of it? But I think that most of the excitement is in the anticipation of the new gear. Whereas the reality of owning it, if that's wiped you out financially to do it, that's going to sting. So make sure that you can afford it before you do it. And I think the second one is when it comes to lens selection, think about the lenses that you actually will use, and don't try to just complete a set that seems on paper to be the right thing. You don't want to say, right, I've got all of these focal lengths covered and I've got all of these primes, and if this happens and if that one day happens, then I can shoot this. Be someone who's more like, okay, I use a 35mm prime a lot, let's get one of those, and then we'll see how that goes. And if I find that I really am struggling and I need something else, then I'll buy one more lens and add that in, rather than trying to think, I need to cover everything because if this happens and if that happens, then I might need this and I may need that. I was in a group of photographers many moons ago, and one of the rules that I actually established, we kind of had this thing where we would push each other all the time, and a lot of it was to not have more expensive gear. I kind of missed that group actually. It was more about like, can you do it with less? It was like, can you make your own lighting modifiers? Can you do a photo shoot that doesn't use any professional lighting? It was like, can you, how few lenses can you get away with for professional work? And one of the rules that I established in the group, which is not a rule, it was just, I think sometimes this gets lost in translation, especially with people when their English isn't their first language. When we say things like this that are rules, it's just a joke, but it's sort of half meant seriously, but it's not a thing. We're not saying you have to do this. It's just kind of like it's a joke to stop people going overboard with things, going too far with things. And the rule was, if you've got more than 3 lenses, then you're messing about. That was the general thing. And if anyone bought like a 4th or 5th lens, we'd sort of ridicule them for it, because it was like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. Oh, you need 5 lenses, do you, to be a photographer? You know, what's wrong with you? Can't you do a job properly on 2 or 1? And so it was like it was like a race to the bottom, not a race to the top. That's probably a better way to explain it. Does that kind of make sense? I know that sometimes this gets lost on people, things like this. Maybe it's also a kind of a very English thing to do, to sort of race to the bottom and not try to race to the top. If you bought a new camera body that came out, people would laugh at each other because you need that, do you, to take a photograph? As if you weren't very good, you needed to spend more money to try and compensate for not being a good photographer. So the overall problem, because this is happening in this industry a lot, you'll get YouTubers who are constantly buying new gear and trying it out. You'll see them spend a lot of money and then tell you you don't need to do the same. It very much feels like, do as I say, not as I do. People that are professional photographers that are getting this gear and saying you don't need it, it's because it's making their job easier. So that's the camp that I fall into, is that I will buy a camera like a Z8, but like I can always do the photography work that I need. Give me a D600, I can complete pretty much any photography job out there. I can do it. It's just that my life is easier on a Z8, that's why I buy it. So does that make sense to you? If I say to you, I can do it on a D600, you don't need to buy a Z8, I've got a Z8, you don't need one. You could turn around and say, so why did you buy it then? Well, because it makes my life easier. That's why people are buying other cameras. But you don't need it, your work's not going to change. But that's ultimately the thing to remember, is that when you get that new camera that you're looking at, if you decide to buy it, your pictures are going to look exactly the same as they did before. Nothing will change. And again, I tell you, I keep saying it on this channel, it's proven. Go on to any of the photographers you like on YouTube, look at their work, and from camera to camera, as they switch systems, you can't tell which system they shot it on. So that camera that you're looking at now is going to change nothing in your work. That's where I want to kind of get to with this. The only thing it might do is make your life easier in certain circumstances, because the focus system is going to be better, and you'll be able to do video if that's something that you want to move into. I would also say, when you're at that point where, I really want to get it, but it's hurting you, spend that money, take a cooling off period. Just say, okay, I'm going to take 7 days out of this, and I'm not going to look at any camera gear. I'm just going to do something else for a bit now. Relax, cool off, see if you still want it. Yeah, anyway, that's enough of that. See you next time. Bye-bye.